Well, it is 11 a.m. and we have 16 people on the line, including our first 3 presenters at the very least. So why don't we get started? Welcome everybody to the October NECAFS webinar. Today's is the first, what we're calling a regional roundtable, with very quick highlights of many food safety projects throughout the region. This was something that was identified early on in our proposal development process as something folks in the region were very interested in, learning more about what everybody else in the region is working on, and we thought this might be an efficient way of covering a lot of ground quickly. Here's the process. We're going to try to keep everybody muted except the speaker and the moderators. We have a single PowerPoint presentation, which you should be able to see now if you're joining by computer. And we have the slides from all the presenters in that single PowerPoint file. And so we'll be advancing through that as we go through the speaker lineup. And we'll unmute each speaker as needed. Presenters, if it seems like we're having audio problems with you, just check a few things real quick. Make sure if you're on a headset that it actually is unmuted on the headset. And also within GoToMeeting in the control panel, and we'll do the GoToMeeting switch. If there's a real problem, we're going to advance to the next speaker and ask you to try resetting your audio or calling in by phone. The call-in information is in the chat box right now. The phone number is 408-650-3123, and the access code is 532-118. 461. So that's a backup if you need it. We're also going to be pasting in summary information for each presentation, for each project in the chat box as the project comes up to be presented. And so that'll be the speaker's name, the presentation title, and their contact information. So you should be able to copy and paste from the chat box. And we'll also be compiling that information on the NECAFS website after the presentation, and the website is listed there on the screen for you, as well as some other ways to keep in touch with us. I want to thank all the presenters for taking the time to, first of all, register to present and compile their information for the presentation today. Also want to thank Elizabeth Newbold, NECAFS Center Administrator, for pulling this all together. There's a lot of behind-the-scenes work, and it's all appreciated. Thank you, everybody. That said, this is a bit of an experiment. We appreciate you trying this out with us, and we're looking forward to hearing from everybody. I've gone through the set of slides, and it is pretty remarkable, all the work that's going on in the region. So hopefully everybody learned something today. So presenters, remember you have 1 slide in 3 minutes, and we're going to have to stick to that to keep things moving. We have a total of, I believe, 17 projects being presented today. If anybody along the way has an urgent or clarifying question, type it in the chat box, and we'll try to get it addressed for you right away. The majority of Q&A will be at the end of all the presentations, so just looking forward to that discussion and keeping the presentations moving. I think that's all I had. Elizabeth, did you have anything you wanted to add?
No, that was good. I just wanted to remind that we'll take questions at the end. So just if you have something, type it in the chat box, but we'll pick it up at the end.
The other thing I'll say is we will have an evaluation at the very end. It's a very short Google form-based survey with 4 questions, very, very simple and quick. And we really would value your feedback. Our thought is to make this a quarterly event and offer an opportunity for a regular check-in on projects. So if you have ideas for improving this, we are all ears. So thanks. With that, I'm going to unmute Litha Sivanandan from West Virginia, who is going to be presenting today on some work she's been doing on fruit drying and byproduct utilization. Litha, can you hear us?
Yes, I'm here. So start now?
Yes, please.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Hi, I'm Litha Shwanathan, and Kaushalendra Singh is here with me. Winifred Maggie won't be able to join us today as she is traveling. Now to the presentation on commercialization on fruits and vegetables drying and byproduct utilization. The Penn State Food for Profit Workshop is a one-day class to teach farmers and entrepreneurs on how to set up and manage a food business. Because of the diverse participants who attend these sessions, there is little time to address specific types of food products. There has been great demand from farmers who produce fruits and vegetables to learn how to add value and shelf life to the items that are not sold in the market stand or in some cases left unharvested because of market issues. This gave rise to West Virginia University developing a lab research results-based or lab-to-community program called Fruits Drying Workshop to provide hands-on production training and to address food safety, risk management, and usage of shared commercial kitchens and co-packers. Production, marketing, and legal risk mitigation are addressed. The project team is now developing and testing educational materials to ensure that they will be effective in equipping farmers to determine how much of their fruits or vegetable crops will be excess, to explore if it will be feasible or practical to add value, and to create their own adoption plans. Both meetings and internet modules will be used to deliver this information. These materials are currently being tested at the Greater Downtown Career and Technology Center as part of their Field to Fork Agricultural Incubator. The next step will be to assist 2 other communities to replicate the program, one each in West Virginia and Pennsylvania, as this problem is pervasive. An additional step yet to be explored and not included in the project is to provide a scientific explanation of processes and food safety through internet animations and videos. It is to be noted that extensive research has been done on producing non-food products such as supercapacitor as seen in the image on the right-hand corner from fruits processing waste, which is a huge problem in the industry. Also, further research is needed to develop processes for fruits and vegetable snacks and evaluate its drying kinetics, microbial resistance, and sensory evaluation. For example, due to participants' demands, preliminary studies are being done on smoky apples, cones, and potatoes. Thank you. I'm done. Hello.
Thanks, Litha. Sorry, I was the one that was muted that time. Thanks.
Okay.
That was fantastic. Well done. Right on time.
Thank you.
No questions appearing in the chat box. We're going to move on to Justine Ballou from University of Maryland, who will be presenting on the development and implementation of a hybrid workshop in FSMA, produce safety and preventive controls.
Good morning, everyone. I'm just going to wait until the slide advances.
Thank you.
Okay. Although the title of our project is quite long, it's a simple idea to develop and implement a hybrid workshop in FSMA produce safety and preventive controls rules for stakeholders engaged in both growing and processing high-risk produce. So I have been working with Rohan Tekekar. He's a professor over in the Nutrition and Food Science Department here at the university, along with Dave Martin, Ginger Myers, and Shauna Henley. I think Shauna is actually on the call right now. Hello, Shauna. all at UMD Extension, to develop this project, which will combine both of the produce safety and preventive controls trainings for those growers who are also processing. These trainings are expensive, and the produce safety training is 1 day, whereas the preventive controls training is 2.5 days. And our goal was to, well, we were recently funded for this project within the last few weeks, and we plan to hold these 3 workshops throughout the state between February and March. And our goal is to reduce costs, reduce training times, offering a more comprehensive understanding of gaps and GIPs for, like I said, those growers who are concerned with both growing and processing. So we hope to start rolling that out soon. We're getting the curriculum set now. We hope to get that approved by the PSA and the FSPCA, and we are working on getting cross-trained for both rules, and I think that's it.
Great. Thanks, Justine.
Thanks.
And Justine's contact information is in the chat box as well. I'll advance the slide. Is Sarah with you?
She is. Yes, I'm here.
Oh, great. Welcome, Sarah. Sarah Allard is our next speaker, talking about a project called Conserve.
Hi, everybody. I'm Sarah Allard. I'm a postdoc at the University of Maryland School of Public Health, working with Amy Sapkota. And we are part of a center called Conserve, a center of excellence at the nexus of sustainable water reuse, food, and health. And we're working on this multi-institution, multi-state team to look at non-traditional irrigation water sources and how they can safely be used for irrigation of food crops. So we're about halfway through the first year of the grant now, and we've begun sampling in the Mid-Atlantic, and I think the Southwest sampling is going to begin next week. Starting in the spring, we're going to start testing out some filtration technologies and using these irrigation water sources to grow crops, at least in Maryland. Some of the things we're looking at are chemical and physical water quality, bacterial indicators of fecal contamination, pathogens, Salmonella, Listeria, E. coli. And the part that I'm working on are the total bacterial communities. So we're using next-gen sequencing to look at the microbiomes of these different water sources, which include surface water like rivers and ponds, tidal rivers, reclaimed wastewater, and like produce wash water. And we're also looking at PPCPs, including antibiotics. We're also looking at pesticide residues. So we're just trying to get an overall picture of water quality for all these different sources, and then moving forward trying to figure out how we can use them for irrigation.
Super. Sounds like a great project. Thanks, Sarah, so much for joining us. The next presenter is Luc Laborde. And I need to unmute you, Luc. Sorry. Give me a second. Go ahead. Can I hear you?
Can you hear me?
We can. Go for it.
Okay. I'll just go over one area that we're currently involved in, looking at the occurrence of Listeria monocytogenes in produce packing and processing facilities, focusing on two commodities, mushrooms, which is a completed project, and apples, the initiated project. The issue is that listeriosis outbreaks and recalls have been traced to fresh produce, and we're hearing more and more about them as they emerge. And so what the industry needs to understand is how this pathogen gets into their produce packing facilities, where it becomes established, and strategies for how to eradicate. Excuse me. The methods we're using are just to swab sample non-food contact surfaces. We don't do anything but any other kinds of surfaces, and enrichment procedures. And on the right, you see a diagram of the facility, and this has been published. You can look at the larger study if you wish, but generally those two red spots indicate where we found the same virulence type of Listeria monocytogenes at all three of our sampling periods in a wet floor crack and a drain as expected. We did find that the facility was 94% of the isolates were one single virulence type clone. So we concluded that the Listeria had basically colonized the facility. We were able to show a reduction in the occurrence after we made recommendations for sanitation improvements. So that was a good part of that. As far as the apple industry, we're going out there. We did some preliminary studies at some apple or tree fruit packing facilities, and we found initially 10 to 50% of our samples were positive, which was pretty surprising. Now we're just beginning a full year study at 3 different apple packing facilities. And you can see its picture on the right. Basically where we think we're finding it is in the brush area, at the washing, and particularly near the wax line. So we're going to follow up on that and also conduct extension workshops to bring these guys' sanitation programs up to speed.
Great project, Luke. Thanks so much for sharing. Before we move on to the next speakers, somebody is on who I can't mute, who either has a cold or allergies. So if that's you, can you just mute yourself on whatever device you're connected with? Thanks. And don't work in produce today. Andy Filenz with NOFA New York is next. Welcome, Andy.
Thank you, Chris.
Yep.
We're just starting this project, and it's a collaborative effort between NOFA New York, Cornell, University of Vermont, and NOFA Vermont, and it's a fairly broad spectrum approach to providing produce farms with food safety training is outlined by FSMA requirements and also helping the farms to understand the overlap and the differences between FSMA gaps and if they're organically certified, the National Organic Program. We're going to, as part of the initiative, we'll be doing work in pack sheds, some field work, training organic inspectors. There's a lot of different pieces that are going to come together over the next 3 years, and right now the primary effort is mobilizing resources and getting ready to start work.
Super. Thanks, Andy. One of several USDA NEFA FSOP projects proposed, and I believe all of the project awards will be announced officially October 19th. Thanks for joining us, Andy. The next presenter is Aaron Shire with the National Farmers Union, and Aaron is going to be presenting on two projects.
Good morning, everyone, and
Hi.
Thanks for bearing with me for 2 projects. I appreciate that. And actually, they're both in many ways very similar to the last one that was just discussed, so I will try not to go too far into detail. This one, the goal is to provide local producers, what we're calling local producers and processors, with food safety education and training on regulatory requirements of applicable FSMA rules relevant to their scale of production and management practices, and that address their limited access to adequate and affordable food safety training, education, outreach, and technical assistance. And what we mean by local producers in this particular grant is it's a catch-all for small growers, small-scale processors, mixed-type facilities, socially disadvantaged farmers, including low literacy farmers, organic, sustainable, and other identity-preserved operations, food hubs, marketing co-ops, and small processing co-ops. And the additional overarching goal of this project is that it's accomplished through a collaborative and coordinated approach that's also a national approach. So this is a cooperative agreement with FDA, and the 2 lead organizations are National Farmers Union and the National Young Farmers Coalition. And then here in the Northeast, we'll be connecting with New England Farmers Union, Maryland and New York State's Departments of Agriculture, and Cornell University. So far, that's who's in the network, and we're looking to expand that network for this project for sure. The network will ID additional partners, host training, disseminate resources, and develop and use a website with partner information outreach materials. FDA in particular will be leveraging the FDA-based organizations, the Food Safety Alliances, NCC, and RCCs, and ultimately the goal is to provide accessible food safety education and training all the way across the country. And we will be looking, we'd like to emphasize that we're going to be looking to collaborate with others in this area to maximize outreach and training effectiveness. So please be in touch about that for more details, and I'll go ahead and move on to the next slide and leave some of the details off for the sake of time. This outreach effort in Connecticut is very similar to the one Andy just talked about in New York. The idea is that that FSMA regulations can disadvantage small entities, and we'd like to minimize those impacts to small farms due to FSMA compliance requirements. Just to be clear, the difference between the last project and this project is this one is really, this outreach effort in Connecticut really is oriented toward produce safety rule, whereas the last one is broader-based produce rule and preventive controls rule. Just to clarify that, if I didn't make that clear. So the aims of this project, this Connecticut grant, will be to increase awareness of FSMA compliance requirements and facilitate adoption of PSA training and USDA CAPS. And we're doing that mainly through developing educational materials. There are already a couple articles published on the New England Farmers Union website. A guidebook is forthcoming. And there will be group meetings conducted in every Connecticut county, and there will also be direct farm visits. These have not occurred yet. They are forthcoming, and they will, some people on the project will be identifying and visiting all 17, well, I think it's already identified, 17 farms that report gross sales between 250,000 and 500,000. Will be visited, and at least 20% of farms identified as having sales between 25,000 and 250,000. And the results of this project will be addressed through pre- and post-meeting survey and on-farm visit feedback forms. Thanks very much, everyone.
Thanks, Aaron. Great job. Next speaker is Lori Pivarnik from Rhode Island.
Good morning.
Morning.
I'm going to be talking on a few projects, but they're all sort of related to one another. The first one that I have up here is a specialty crop funded program, and the specialty crop money in our state has been used for a number of years to help support our Rhode Island GAP project. But every time we apply, we have to make it bigger and better. It can't be just about gaps, although we continue to implement that program with a great deal of success. We've trained about 170 farmers over the last 10 years, and we've trained about 70 folks that from university, government, or food service even have come to our classes. But the biggest difference between this specialty crop program is we've expanded it. Oh, wait a minute. Sorry, I'm on the wrong one. Oh, gosh, I'm so sorry. I had mine and you had yours. Okay, let me back it up. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. Keep going on that one. Is this the one you wanted?
No, don't worry about it.
Okay.
I don't even know where I am now. Okay, this is a more recent one. There were three, I guess, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
This is the most recent one that we had, which we applied for before I think the center was in place to help with PSA training.
Thanks.
And this provides us some train-the-trainer funds and gives us the opportunity to make sure that we get out there and train our farmers that need to comply, and then open it to farmers that would like to know about and may need to comply for buyer requirements and not regulatory requirements. We have an evaluation tool that we use that does self-assessment, knowledge and understanding, and implementation about what they've learned and what they are going to implement. And this will actually be a Connecticut-Rhode Island collaboration as part of the program that we're doing, as Diane Wright Hirsch over Connecticut wrote a similar program, and then we're going to combine what we've done. So we have signed up for Train the Trainer, myself and another colleague, which is going to be in Vermont in November, and we at least plan 2 PSA trainings and then additional workshops if they're interested. So that's this project. What's coming up next?
The next is
so I can get myself straight.
Produce Safety Rule. This
Okay.
is the FDA State Territory Cooperative Agreement.
Okay, this one is a brand new project. This is the actual the principal investigator on this is actually the Rhode Island Department of Health. This was money that the FDA put out there for states, departments of health to plug into to implement and to make sure farms are in compliance with the produce safety rule. This particular project is a partnership, which I think all these projects really need to be, between URI, Rhode Island Department of Health, and Department of Environmental Management, Division of Agriculture. The first step in this will be an assessment out there to find out exactly what the farm readiness is. We're going to get out. We're going to. We've already have some of that as a result of a much bigger project we did in terms of regional assessment regarding what they know, what knowledge do they have, what kind of economic readiness do they have. We have some of that already, but our goal is to reach out to try to get more information from farmers in terms of what their readiness is. The goal here will be not only training for the farmers, for which URI will be responsible for, but also training for the regulators, for which URI will be working with the Rhode Island Department of Health. The idea here is sustainability and communication and resource sharing with local and state federal partners to make sure folks are not only in compliance, but give them the resources they need to be in compliance. This is part of a 5-year program for a continuing farm inspection program, which will be housed at the Department of Health, but with the help and support of the Division of Ag and the University of Rhode Island.
Super. Thanks, Lori. You have one more, right, or no?
That was the one that's where I got confused. Sorry.
Okay. Okay.
I'm sorry. Basically, this particular one is due to end in March. It's also a specialty crop grant. This is what I was trying to talk about. The specialty crop grants have been, for years, have helped support our Rhode Island GAP program for certification of farms. There's 35 or 36 farms in Rhode Island that have this certification, which has actually been beneficial to them in terms of selling products for places that wouldn't have accepted unless they had some sort of on-farm food safety program in place. It's a certified program so that we have an inspector, quote unquote, going out from, and we have an audit going out from the Division of Agriculture to make sure that they're on task with our program. But every year or every couple of years we have to think of something new and different to make sure that specialty crop is funded to us. So this particular specialty crop program not only targets farmers with programming for our GAP and food safety plan development, but it also engages the farmers market vendors and farmers market managers in terms of food safety food safety handling in the markets and what they're supposed to do. That has been the market manager side of it has been quite successful. Actually, there have been a bunch of folks who've gotten together and actually written some best practices for some markets, which has been really great. The vendors have been a little bit more challenging. We did one particular program, maybe got 3 vendors to come, but we have everything is online. The whole training program is online, has been recorded and online, and what we're doing is we're working with Farm Fresh Rhode Island for better outreach to vendors, and we plan on doing this again. So we're trying to now not only to go to do farm education and outreach, but we're trying to go right up to the market in terms of food safety handling of produce.
Fantastic. Thanks, Lori. The next presenter is Nicole Richard, also from Rhode Island. Nicole, looks like you are unmuted already. Is that right?
Yeah, I think so. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Okay. Hi, I'm Nicole Richard. And so this project was sort of born out of an outreach collaboration with Amanda Kinchla at UMass, offering programming to our local incubator kitchens and food processing centers. And so this is basically a need-narrow planning grant, so it's just a little bit of money to try to get some key stakeholders together to hash out an outline or a roadmap for accomplishing some tasks. You know, New England food entrepreneurs adding value to local agricultural products face a lot of challenges navigating regulations and developing a safe, high-quality product. As educators, we need more information about those challenges and opportunities, which is why we want to do a needs assessment so that we can really get at the issues that they're having. And the goal of this planning grant is to just organize a planning meeting of experts and stakeholders to discuss methodology for conducting a needs assessment and enhancing regional training and research strategies. So, you know, initially we're going to coordinate a meeting of experts and stakeholders from the region, and at the meeting we'll be outlining a protocol for developing and conducting a needs assessment of our target audience, developing methodology for conducting some research-based validation studies for scheduled processes to promote best practices and regulatory compliance. The reason that objective is so focused is because there's just been a lot of communication with certain stakeholders, and that's just specifically what they're saying. And the needs assessment will sort of inform more areas to maybe conduct research. And then ultimately we want to build a strategy to enhance and expand regional programming and training to maximize the collaborative efforts. So, you know, already today I know who I'm going to be reaching out to, Erin Schreier, and you know, it's been great. There's some really great people working on this project. So,
great project. Thanks, Nicole.
Thanks, Chris.
I'm glad we already have an impact statement we can write from today's webinar.
I know. Yeah. How fast was that?
Paulo Martinez Ramos is next, but are you with us, Paulo? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm under Tia. We're like Kelsey, Tia, and I are under her email because we're using her computer. So
fantastic. Thanks for joining. Yeah, whenever you're ready.
Well, my name's Paula Martinez, like you just said, and my work is going to focus on the assessment of preparation methods to create a post-harvest wastewater model for food safety validation, as you can see. And the issue we've encountered is that most farmers are using turbidity as a measure to measure water quality. And the problem with this is them using bleach as their sanitizer. The bleach in contact with organic matter or organic load loses its efficacy drastically. So this poses a food safety problem for us. So our approach is going to be to design an appropriate model. And what we want to do is screen different commercial sanitizers and see which one could actually be more effective in, you know, maintaining its efficacy with the organic load. So previous work was done from my colleague Thomas. What he did was analyze 10 different farms from the Pioneer Valley area. So he measured their water for turbidity, organic carbon, and microbial load. And then with that information, he took the high and low organic load levels, which were 112 and 8.12, as you can see in the slide. And what he wanted to do is measure what method, paddle mixing, which is the homogenized leafy green matter, would be better to represent the organic load in field, but on a benchtop scenario. And as you can see in the graph, the green are using the stomacher, which is the paddle mixing, and then the blue is using a blender or just the homogenized leafy green matter. And so he concluded that both methods there's not really a big difference in terms of like the COD level. So like one can produce more turbidity than the other, but they really produce the same organic load level. And so here's where my work comes in. What I'm going to do is maintain the same turbidity for all my samples, but change the organic load levels. And what we want to do with this is prove that turbidity is not a good measure for water quality. And so in the future, we hope to then design a model to then screen our sanitizers and be able to prove which sanitizer is actually better and maintains its efficacy and will be able to reduce microbial load, especially with pathogens. So thank you.
Nice job. Thank you, Paulo. Thanks for joining us and sharing your work. Tia is next.
Hi, everybody. My name is Tia. I'm at the University of Massachusetts, and what I'm going to present to you is the project that I'm going to be working on throughout my graduate career, because I haven't actually gotten started yet. But the biggest focus for my project is going to be creating guidance for small and medium growers that use triple bay washing and to help them understand why sanitizers are important and how they can use them throughout their washing processes. So I'll be using different chemical sanitizers, and I'm going to look at specifically the placement of the sanitizers within the 3 bays to see how different placements can affect produce quality, shelf life, and safety of the produce. So I'll be using different sanitizers to compare solutions. And while I'm doing this, I'm going to also mimic the organic load that the farmers would see in their bays throughout the process. I'm going to do this by making juice from spinach to sort of see how that can affect the efficacy of the sanitizer. And then to test the quality, I'm going to look at the quality immediately following washing, and then I'll also look at it again 72 hours after being stored in a controlled environment. And to test quality, I'm going to look at things such as sensory evaluations and then other measurements such as like weight loss and electrolyte leakage. And I'll be testing the microbial load of both the water and the produce to see how safe the process actually is for food safety. And I'm hoping that at the end of this I can come up with a standard to reach out with Amanda Kinchla to small farmers in the area so that way they actually know the proper ways to use these in ways that they can use it beneficially. Thank you.
Great work, Tia. Thank you. Next presenter is Kelsey Harper, also at University of Massachusetts, who I'm hoping is with you all.
Yeah.
Hi, Amanda. I heard you in the background. Take it away, Kelsey.
Hi, I'm Kelsey, and I've been working on developing a sanitation standard operating procedure for a produce brush washer. So small farms in our area use produce brush washers like this one, but they are difficult to clean and sanitize. So we're trying to find an easy and effective way to do this. So we first sanitized the machine with 200 parts per million chlorine bleach, then inoculated some rollers with non-pathogenic E. coli, ran the machine with water for 30 seconds, then doused the inside of the machine with 5 gallons of 25, 50, 100, or 200 parts per million chlorine bleach, and then finally enumerated the E. coli that was left on the machine after each treatment. And we found that the water rinse reduced E. coli by less than 1 log CFU per 96 centimeters squared, and that higher concentrations of chlorine were more effective at reducing bacterial levels, and the exact numbers are listed here. And later we're going to look into studying other sanitizers in the future to find which one works best. Thank you.
Thanks.
One other thing to note is that Kelsey developed a standard operating procedure template to be used for growers that have this type of brush washer, and it was posted in our UMass Bench notes. So if people have audiences that are using this brush washer, we can share that as a tool for implementation if people are interested.
Great. Thanks. If you get a second there, paste it in the chat box, a link to the SOP. Yeah. Thanks, Amanda. Next presenter is Hans Estrin, my colleague at University of Vermont. And I need to unmute him, I think. Hang on, Hans. I'm finding you. There you are, buddy.
Hey, this is Hans.
Great.
As Chris said. And I'm a produce safety specialist from UVM Extension. And this first project is CAPS, the Community Accreditation for Produce Safety. And the first thing to say is that although I coordinate this project, it really is a farmer-focused, farmer association-driven initiative, and it's owned by the Vermont Vegetable and Berry Growers Association, 300 at least farm members that are really driving this whole thing. So it's been a joy to work on that. A lot of funders, as you can see, and the initial problem, which many of your states are facing, is that most of our growers are not falling under FSMA, but they're selling into wholesale markets that are changing their expectations, or even small wholesale markets such as co-ops and schools and hospitals. So we really need something. The growers feel like they need something to reduce risk, but also to increase their market integrity in the future. And definitely this waiting in fear for FSMA to hit, which was sort of the initial thing, is clearly a really bad idea, and it feels good to be proactive on this and have farmers charged up. So basically we're proactively developing an optional farmer-crafted produce safety accreditation, and it's really based on USDA GAP practical standards that morphed into the practical produce safety that the University of Vermont Extension developed in 2011 and has since migrated to CAPS. The real concept here is that we're trying to come up with a real cost-effective modular design, an online platform that can be scaled to support FSMA compliance. So if farms are growing, they can do that, and yet it will reduce risk and allow farms to show that or verify these risk reduction practices. The thing that is, to me, really exciting about this is that as the two photos that you have there, this is the exciting part from my perspective. This farm folder is the first one, on the right, upper right, where farms create a folder, and as their documents, their 18 verification documents in 7 different sections that you can see there in the blue links, the CAPS documents, if you can see that, and these are auto-populated, auto-generated PDFs from the work that farmers have done, which auto-populate a private farm folder URL, and they can share that with buyers. There's also a badge there that shows their status and when they're completed, and that's a secure badge as well. So, and then those farm folders populate a share page that the growers that are participating can see all the other growers in this and can go look at photos of wash lines of other farms. So the peer-to-peer education piece, we're hoping to both regulate and educate. So in 2015, 25 farms joined the pilot and helped craft the 18 requirements with the CAPS advisory, which includes the very engaged Vermont Agency of Ag, Food and Markets. In 2016, we have 95 farmers that had got on and started to write plans, and 68 farms continued, paid $100 in cash voluntarily to continue with the accreditation, which will end in November. And then last but not least, we had a pilot with Hannaford's where they accepted CAPS instead of GAPS. I'll move on to the next slide because I know my time is running short.
Doing great.
Okay, so this will be a bit shorter. Post-harvest team is another, this concept of, we're testing the concept of one-stop consulting, and I do coordinate this project as well and work with Chris, our moderator, and produce safety specialist Ginger, and farm viability, Mark Canella, and Betsy. So anyway, the problem here is that Ginger, especially as she visited many, many farms to consult on produce safety construction, really ran into problems because she couldn't really advise farms without clear business plans, and she also needed ag expertise in terms of advising on projects, and it became pretty complicated to reach out to lots of people, try to get answers back, or for the farmers to reach, 3-4 different service providers. So we're shooting for this one-stop consulting. Could it be more effective, efficient, and generate some integrated resources and case studies? So we're looking into that. We've got 5, up to 6 farms. We've got 5 out of 6 right now that we're working with. Duchess, Route 5, Intervale, Sunrise, Route 2. These farms are doing many different things, but most are post-harvest pack shed improvement projects or new builds or barn renovations, winter washing. They represent the spectrum, and we're with them for 2 to 3 years working, and the team has one initial site visit, and then we work via Outlook and Dropbox, and I'm coordinating some of the output to farmers and the communications, and so far so good. We're looking at sort of how to redesign the case study so they don't just get printed and collect dust on the shelf, but we're looking at a more active portal-based design, website-based, that would have photos, tech resources, and case studies, and help easily make that information available. Thank you very much.
Nice job, Hans. A lot of heavy lifting. Thank you. Looks like I'm next. My name is Chris Callahan, and the project I'm talking about is the Vermont Produce Tracking and Traceability Study. This project is funded by the Vermont Agency of Agriculture, Food and Markets through a state specialty crop block grant and matched with funds by the Vermont Housing Conservation Board. The idea here is trying to help folks get up the curve on produce traceability, which is becoming increasingly important, both from within enterprises wanting better records management systems, but also from markets, wholesale buyers in particular, demanding improved produce traceability. An important note here is, as far as I can tell and as far as I understand, traceability at the level that we're looking at is not specifically required. There are references to it, references obviously to record keeping in subpart O of the produce safety rule, and a lot of discussion in the comments within the preamble. This work was started over a year ago by another project lead, and we're in the process of transitioning it to me. What we have done, what's been accomplished so far, is a good deal of grower survey and buyer surveys. And the grower surveys are probably what everybody on the call would expect. The results are kind of all over the map. A lot of paper-based record keeping, pretty variable uptake of smartphone use or even computer use for record keeping related to produce tracking. The other thing that's becoming clear from these surveys and also from the work I've done related to remote monitoring of storage conditions is internet access is not something we can assume exists everywhere, and even cellular access is not something that can be assumed everywhere. So connectivity is a big hurdle here, even if we can get adoption to take place. We are just through phase 1 of the project, as I mentioned, which involved grower surveys and buyer interviews, and we have a pretty solid list of software options that are out there. Another thing that became clear from the initial surveys is a lot of people have tried different software packages and not adopted them, and so to me there's a clear barrier there, clearly there's a barrier. The barrier itself is not clear yet. But we do see this project as having benefit not only to growers and buyers, but also to software developers who are interested in working in this space. So, for example, making sure they have a clear set of requirements from potential users so that adoption is more easy. And I will move on to Christina Sweet with Vermont Agency of Agriculture and Food and Markets. Let me see. I think I need to unmute you, Christina. There you go.
Hi, everyone. This is Christina Sweet with the Vermont Agency of Agriculture, and we are currently proposing what we are calling as a working title the Produce Safety Infrastructure Improvement Program. And this is a program that would allow us to grant out funds to producers around the state of Vermont. We are proposing this to the Vermont State Legislature, which is where the funding would come from, and with the goal of providing cost share payments and technical assistance to produce operations who want to improve their on-farm food safety capabilities. The grants would not be exclusive for producers who are covered under the Food Safety Modernization Act Produce Safety Rule, but we would give priority to operations that are seeking to meet federal food safety requirements. So our timeline is that if funding is secured, it would be secured by the end of our next legislative session in the state, which would end this May, and that would allow us to have funds by the next fiscal year, by July 2017, and that would mean that we could release an RFP as early as January 2018 and go through a competitive review process and select participants and have them begin their projects, hopefully by March or April of 2018. Our total request will be $200,000 from the Vermont State Legislature for 2 years, so it would be $200,000 for year 1 and another $200,000 for year 2. And we reserve some of that funding for on-farm technical assistance, consulting for engineering projects, and that would be opportunity for us to continue to collaborate with UVM Extension with some of the consulting work that they're already doing around food safety on produce farms. And that would leave $150,000 per year available to grant out. And since we would require a one-to-one match, producers would be able to apply for up to $15,000 in grant funds, but projects could cost up to $30,000. And we hope that if this program is successful, it'll allow more Vermont produce growers to meet produce safety requirements, whether legal produce safety requirements or buyer-mandated produce safety requirements, and maintain access to critical wholesale and retail markets. And it will also offer us an opportunity to look at how effective the program is over 2 years and see if we want to continue to seek funding for an ongoing program beyond the pilot phase.
Super. Thanks, Christina. Nice project. That was our last scheduled presentation. I want to thank all the presenters again. We covered a lot of ground, and the projects are really awesome. Thanks for everybody for pulling information together and making yourselves available. I would ask that we quickly do the eval on Google Forms. Elizabeth, can you paste that in the chat box? I'm kind of locked up here. And then we'll jump into some Q&A. So if everybody could just take a couple minutes to do some eval. It is quick, 4 questions. Should take you under a minute. And the way we'll handle Q&A is, I think, just if you could just put either just mention that you have a question in the chat box or type your question out, and then we can unmute you one by one. I'm a little hesitant to unmute everybody because we'll probably get a lot of feedback and noise. So if you've done the eval and have some questions or additional input for the discussion, go ahead and type away in the chat box.
Chris?
Yes.
Oh, I don't see, this link doesn't work. It's not active, and I don't see any chat box. This is a different format, so I'm just having some problems.
Okay. Do you have any questions you want to jump in with?
Luke, I just posted, sorry, when I posted the first time there was a character, so the link should be live now. I reposted it to the chat box.
Oh, okay, I don't see the chat box. So anyway, Mike, well, I have a good question about these alternate curricula for it was mentioned several times, and I just wonder if these are intended not to be for AFTO certificates, or if you're putting that off for later on. This is something we're trying to figure out as well. Alternate people.
Yeah, which presenter specifically? And anybody in particular?
I'm sorry, I don't know. There was like 2 or 3 of the developing alternative curricula.
So maybe the USDA NEFA FSOP projects, Andy's, and
Luke, you might be referring to my project with Rohan. This is Justine Ballou at Maryland. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, that was the original idea, was to sort of create this hybridized curriculum. But the more we look at it, the more we realize there really isn't a ton of overlap between the 2 trainings, and that we'll probably just be keeping the curricula the way they are. So we probably won't need to go through any sort of approval process, but so that's where we are.
My basic question is, okay, are you going to budget in the cost for certification? Now that adds a lot of expense to the price. So how are you going to handle that?
Yeah, so we're covering the cost of the training materials, and I believe we're covering the cost of the certification. What we're not covering is basically just the cost of food for the trainings.
Okay, that base cost is about $100, we calculate.
Yeah.
So everyone gets an AFTO certificate?
Yes.
Okay, because that's what we're wrestling with, and that's probably what we're going to do.
Okay, great.
Hans Estrin has a question related to the sanitizer efficacy study, which I believe was Paulo. And the question is only bleach or PAA as well? And let me see, I need to find who that is to unmute.
Hans, I think you're referring to the work that's being done at UMass.
Yes, I think so.
Correct.
So the original brush washer work was done with chlorine, and current work is moving forward with peroxyacetic acid systems and others. Quats is entertained on the table as well. And similarly with the triple wash systems, we're going to be looking more heavily on different types of commercially available peroxyacetic acid systems.
Oh, I'm not muted.
No, you're not. You can speak.
Okay. No, thank you. Yeah, and I'm more concerned about the dunk tank one, and that's great.
Okay. Yeah, we'll still keep. There'll be one chlorine system as a marker, but there's been such a myriad of peroxyacetic acid systems. We thought it was important to really look at if there's any differences in the commercial branded products, because there's just too many to choose from.
That's right. Thank you.
I have a question here from the username looks like Pursley. Are you on? Okay. Any other questions for folks? I have a question for Sarah Allard on the Conserve project. I know it's early days, but I'm wondering just generally if you can speak to how feasible, given ag water requirements under the produce safety rule, how feasible you think reuse could be.
Can I add to that?
Okay, go ahead.
Could you also comment about what types of quality attributes you'll be measuring in your trials?
So Sarah just walked back in. Can you guys maybe start from?
Sorry, Sarah.
Sorry, I had to run out of a sec.
This is Chris Callahan and Amanda Kinchel are also curious about the Conserve project, and I'm curious, and I know it's early days, but I'm curious about your general thoughts on how feasible reuse of water might be. And Amanda was curious, I think, if I can paraphrase, in the curious about the specific measures of quality that you'll be using.
Okay. I think it is definitely viable for certain situations, and we have a couple kind of pilot projects that we're working with now. There are a couple of water reuse facilities in Maryland that are already irrigating more like field crops. So we have them as kind of a little trial, and then we're going to be doing some trials with probably drip irrigation only on some of our Maryland research farms with some of the surface waters. So we have, I guess we're working with different types of water. So the surface waters are, as you all know, already used for some types of irrigation. So that's definitely feasible. In terms of the reclaimed water, I think we might have to be more careful with that, and we're especially curious to look at the like the antibiotics and the pesticide residues and all those kinds of things that aren't necessarily always looked at with food safety testing, and seeing how those might influence the water usability. And in terms of the quality parameters, I guess, well, for the chemical and physical water quality, we're looking at things like nitrates and pH, chloride. We have a list of a few different parameters that we're looking at, turbidity, things like that. And then, yeah, just the bacterial indicators of fecal contamination, E. coli, coliforms, and then we're looking for actual pathogens as well. And then the total bacterial community analysis with the 16S sequencing is going to give us just kind of an overall picture of what we have. So we're using kind of all these different approaches with all the different resources we have from the different institutions on the project
to kind of get a total picture of the quality, and we're going to be linking everything together into a data management system so that we can put everything together and see what might be kind of linked. And then in the future, we're going to be trying out different filtration technologies and also maybe different ways of irrigating to see how those might change the water quality and if that will make certain types like the reclaimed wastewater more usable. That answer your questions?
Thanks, Sarah, very much. Thank you. Amanda, did it answer your question?
Oh, yeah, we're good. We're good.
Okay, all right. Robert, who I believe is Robert Haddad, is asking, why aren't farmers using monitoring strips? That might be a question he knows the answer to. Anybody have anything to add on that? Why aren't monitoring strips a common practice? Robert, feel free to unmute yourself and add to that. Well, oh, you are unmuted. Go ahead, Robert. Okay, we're not hearing you. I will say that because I've had this conversation with Robert several times over the past year or so, if not longer. There you go. That works. Okay. I was just going to say we found test strips to be highly variable in their accuracy to measure concentrations well, especially PAA. But go ahead, add what more you'd like.
When I was typing in that question, it was back to the and I lost track of who was giving the run through about measuring turbidity.
Yep.
And those folks there, I'd like to, well, why looking at that? I mean, I guess why farmers weren't using monitoring strips to measure the levels of, or monitor the levels of sanitizer in the water versus using turbidity.
Yeah, I can't say things specific. This is Amanda Kinchla, and I guess a separate issue is I'm trying to convince growers to actually use sanitizer. And so turbidity is one metric that's being used, but I guess I'm trying to find more about how to assess first a few different things. So as a separate project, we're looking at the commercial test strips so that we can confidently provide better resources of what, if any, you could use. And more specifically, we have found, as you know, Robert, the turbidity or the organic load does interfere with the accuracy of those strips. So I don't have, for me personally, I don't have confidence to even recommend strips as the monitoring tool as of yet. So we're trying to, that's a separate project we didn't talk about today, is trying to look at what is available that we could provide recommendations, and or more specifically, if you are going to use the strips, how can you use them as a qualitative indicator for the adoption of practice. Does that answer your question?
Yes, very much. Thank you.
Yeah, another benefit, if you can connect the dots with turbidity, is that you could automate dosing, right?
Yeah, so that I would love to talk to you later about the monitoring a dosing unit for my small growers seems tricky.
Yep.
And so my secret mission is first trying, and this goes back with TA's project, is not the adoption of getting growers to even use sanitizers has been a challenge for us. And so the idea with the triple wash station project isn't not only to just look at the differences of commercial sanitizers, but in water, because water, adding the sanitizer to water itself will help manage the water contamination risk. But we want to measure the quality attributes of the produce itself with organoleptic and microbial load from a quality perspective in the guise of compelling story if there's benefits to using sanitizer for your produce. So while it's a food safety mission of trying to assess the commercial viability, the differences of commercial sanitizers, monitoring the quality benefits, if there are any, with sanitizers might be a better or more compelling story for the use of sanitizer on farm.
Great, thanks. Other questions? It actually sounds like just unmuting mics is working pretty well, so but feel free to pop a question in the chat box, or if you'd like to be unmuted in R, I can help on this end. I would ask Hans, if you're still on, the idea of having multiple disciplines, from multiple service providers with different disciplines engaged in a one single project at the farm level is obviously something that we're both interested in and working on. What would you say are the key lessons learned so far in making that approach work, or what have we learned?
Well, it's a little too soon to really say for sure and say yes, we would highly recommend this or this particular method. However, one thing I've definitely learned is that it is scheduling a meeting, a farm visit with 3 people can be taxing, but the potential benefits, if you're working over the long term, are great. And what comes out in the moment through the give and take and the back and forth cross-cutting between disciplines with the farmer, I think are emergent kinds of insights potentially, and I think it feels to me like a cost that gives good benefit right now, and then in the long term, being able to have those service providers engaged and easy to access from the farm's perspective, and know the story and have the same information, can really yield some efficiency and effectiveness in terms of consulting. So again, it still remains to be seen how we end up doing that, how much time it takes, what the resources that come out of it, but I'm intrigued, and I think it has a great possibility.
Super, thanks. Other questions, or would any of the presenters like to get into any more detail on their projects? We have a little bit of time.
May I say something?
Yes, Luke. Yeah.
Since Lori went on for 5 minutes. Sorry, Lori. I just want to say that we have an upcoming educational grant. One of these outreach ones is not yet announced, but it will be to develop training strategies and supplementary curricular materials for the plain sect growers, the Amish and the Mennonite, particularly down in the Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, and that will be kind of and just like some other people mentioned about, do we use the Produce Safety Alliance curriculum, or do we modify it, or we're wrestling with that and thinking going with that curriculum, but providing supplementary materials, just because you can't have so many different curricula for so many different types of people. So I just wonder if anyone had any other thoughts about working with the Amish and Mennonite, and we will be getting into this with our Lancaster County Extension agent, Jeff Stoltzfus, who works heavily with that community down there in agricultural issues.
This is Robert Haddad at Cornell. Yeah, I've got quite a number of Amish communities out here in Western New York, and that's been a challenge, particularly with different communities. Some will sit through a PowerPoint presentation, while others absolutely will not do that. So it's trying to. So I've been doing some gaps and harmonized gaps trainings with some of the communities that want it. Most of them are selling through auctions, so it depends on what kind of buyers that they're looking to attract. But actually, the most conservative community that we have is the one that really wants to have a certification. So trying to wrap our heads around how to doing the FSMA training for them is something that need to figure out. And I mean, if you're looking at the same sort of thing, maybe we should put our heads together.
Absolutely.
Do you guys know each other yet?
I don't think so. I don't know.
Oh, maybe.
Elizabeth and I will get you connected. We'll do
Okay.
that.
Thank you. Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Chris, can I add something about CAPS?
Yeah, Hans, go for it.
Yeah, just a brief, but I think an important point is, you know, the focus here with CAPS has been on really how do we prioritize this farm culture behavioral change, and you know, working initially with gaps with farmers and just a lot of grunting and, you know, a lot of resistance, and that they could pass the audit, but I knew that the farm culture hadn't really adopted this. So I am intrigued by this process because it's been so different in terms of farms really owning the process and really feeling like there's authentic behavior change behind it. And that said, what that means is that this CAPS program is really a franchisable but modular kind of thing, so that it has to work within a small a grower community or a grower buyer community that kind of knows each other. It doesn't have to, but having a group take ownership has been an important thing that has come back to me again and again. And so a big part of this is really just producing this tool and this model, which could be adopted really for anything, and you can have any kind of program. GAPS could fit into this, FSMA compliant modules could fit into this, but really, you know, the sellable, franchisable idea is to try to generate and cultivate ownership and cost-effective regulation through peer-to-peer education and farm buy-in and culture change, you know, within an identified group of buyers and sellers, farmers. That's
Great.
it.
Thanks, Hans. Other questions or comments, discussion?
It's me, Luke again. One more issue. The whole issue of alternate curricula, am I correct that there's been no guidance on what that approval process would be, or even if it is possible at all? For instance, I work with the mushroom growers, and that's a very, very specific type of agriculture. I just wonder if this has been thought out about alternate curricula or modified curricula.
This is Chris. I don't know of any formalized approval process yet for alternate curricula or commodity-specific curricula. I know the Southern Regional Center is developing a number of commodity-specific models for incorporation into preventive controls training. But I know that, as far as I understand, it remains an open question about how to formally approve or certify alternate curricula. Does anybody else have additional info?
Time's running out.
Oh, so wait, Luke, I just have a question. It's Amanda. Are you talking about alternative curriculum or additional curriculum? Just curious.
I want to know all options. For instance, in the extreme cases, you know, you could have an alternate for strawberries, but to me that's just tweaking and adding a few things. But for something that's very, very, very unique, such as mushroom growing, and I'm sure there's other examples, you know, they don't want to hear chapter whatever about animal intrusion. Why should they do that? So is there some kind of, and these guys are going to be larger growers. So do we just run them through the grinder and say good luck, or do we try to make some changes to make it more relevant?
Right.
Amanda, did you have something to add? Sorry.
No, it's an interesting question, and I guess it would be a helpful thing to have as a comment. To Luke's point, it would be helpful to have some clarity from our regulatory entities about what they vision this is, because I think there's some really exciting things I heard today but there in terms of the outreach efforts within the Northeast is really exciting. But I noticed that there's a lot of commonalities, which I think there's an opportunity here to leverage those resources in some capacity to have a Northeast approach that is
the same, while accommodating the differences within each respective states, but also having better clarity within regulatory entities of how we can better cater to these audiences without recreating the wheel.
Yep.
What are our limits on doing that? That's really, really important, and we're not hearing anything.
Yeah, and attending the Produce Safety Alliance training was great, and it seemed clear that if you're using the PSA training, you can add materials, but you can't deviate from that. But there's not a strong clarity of the other regulatory component that says alternative curriculum is now on the table.
So one thought is, has anybody submitted that to the TAN?
I don't submit things to the TAN anymore. I've been waiting 6 to 9 months to get an answer. It's just a waste of time.
Okay.
But maybe that's just my luck.
Okay. So that's one thought, and I've got it noted. I've got it noted, Luke, for us to follow up on with respect to the regional center, trying to get clarity on that as well. That's all I can offer at the moment. But my sense would be the PSA grower training is the minimum for those required to take it, and then commodity-specific additional material would have to be just that additional material. I don't know of any other approval process in place for deviating from that, but we can work on clarity.
All right.
Rohan was asking Luke if you were talking specifically about produce safety rule or preventive controls rule, and it sounded like produce safety rule.
Mostly produce safety. In the case of preventive controls, that's been interesting. We just someone in our department just did a dairy-focused one, and they had to go through the omelet example and all that stuff that's in there, you know, just so you understand the principles. But there was a lot of discussion about interaction with the PMO and things like that. That one you can meter out your time a little easier because it's 2.5 days. But the produce one, it's bang, 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 get it done, and get them out before it gets dark.
Yeah.
So there isn't a lot of wiggle room in there. So that's the challenge there.
Yep. And that came up in the Train the Trainer in Geneva, the request for a 1-day training in the case of the produce safety rule for growers, and the challenges that introduces, trying to cover a lot of material in a short time.
And I can see how that could be abused. There could be a lot of people who want their own special blueberry one.
Yeah.
But I think those you can add material and not appreciably increase it. But and maybe there's other forms of agriculture that are weird as well. Like, I don't know, but ginseng or something. I don't know. But greenhouse, things like that really could use some modification.
Yep.
For what are the rules?
Other thoughts, questions? Anybody who's on that didn't have a chance to sign up to present, want to just give a very, very brief project overview on something you're working on we didn't cover today? I'm hearing none. So I guess I would suggest that we should thank everybody for being here today. It was a really great opportunity to share what everybody's working on, and I appreciate everybody taking the time to do so. As we mentioned earlier in the webinar, we will collect the project information and have that available on the NECAFS website along with a recording of this webinar and the slides. So that if